Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to Abnormal Voyages. My name is David, and today we find ourselves in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. We are here, hot on the trail of a most mysterious cryptid. Right here next to me is a statue of said cryptid. This is the Hodag. So we're here to see what we can find out about this elusive monster. Tag along.
We're going to a place that you've never heard of before. It's Abnormal Voyages. You're gonna learn something new. We're gonna open new doors. It's Abnormal Voyages.
We begin our hunt for Hodag knowledge at the Rhinelander Chamber of Commerce. Here you were able to tell just how much this little city loves the Hodag. There was also some very interesting informational pieces. Brought to us by J.K. Rowling, we have this wonderful book, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, written by Newt Scamander, the famous magizoologist. And if we flip here, there's actually an entire entry about the Hodag. It says, the Hodag is horned with red glowing eyes and long fangs and the size of a large dog. It continues to say that McCruza's Department of Nomad Misinformation has put in extensive work to convince Muggles that sightings of Hodags have been hoaxes. It is now confined, most successfully, to a protected area around Wisconsin. And that is where we are right now. Though maybe not as well known as other cryptids such as Bigfoot or Mothman, the Hodag is certainly beginning to grow in popularity. It was even featured in a fantastic episode of Scooby-Doo. But we needed more information than what we could just find out in a cartoon. So, we headed out to talk to an expert. We're now at the Pioneer Park Historical Complex at the official Hodag Museum, and we have none other than Mr. Kerry Bladorn, who is the Hodag Historian. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day in the Northwoods of Wisconsin, and I get to talk about Hodags, so...
Absolutely. Well, we're here to learn all about it, so take it away. What can you tell us about this wonderful creature?
So Hodags are the official mascot of Rhinelander, Wisconsin, also known as the home of the Hodag City. Other names for the Hodag, we like to call it the Dag or the Great Pine Beast. And since 1893, the city of Rhinelander has embraced this mythological creature for almost 130 years, 129 years this year.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah.
So who actually, I guess, found the first one or brought the Hodag out to kind of popular view that people found out about it?
There's some stories that go back to ancient times and some stories that go back to lumberjack and logging days.
Okay.
But for Rhinelander's sake, there was a gentleman named Gene Shepherd, Eugene Simeon Shepherd. And he was an early pioneer of the Rhinelander and Northwoods area. And he was a surveyor, a lumberjack, a timber cruiser, a map maker, and he spent a lot of time wandering around the forest, doing land surveys. He spent a lot of time in logging camps, deep in the recesses of these dark, damp, tobacco smoke-filled bunkhouses of the lumberjacks, and they were very well known for telling stories, tall tales like Paul Bunyan, Babe the Blue Ox, that sort of thing. And Gene Shepherd was renowned for his storytelling abilities. He had a way of sprinkling grains of truth into tales of total hogwash. But they were so believable.
But they were entertaining, right? That's what mattered.
That was the biggest factor there, entertainment. And, consider you're in these logging camp bunkhouses late at night, you just worked all day long, cutting trees down, there's no TV, there's no radio, there's no electricity even. So that storytelling really became an art form, and Gene Shepherd was a pro at it.
Okay.
So Gene, in his travels around the forest, came up with this idea to, discover a creature in the woods. And he had got some ideas from a few different sources, which we can talk about later, but he, at some point in time, wrote an article for our local newspaper called the New North newspaper in 1893, saying that he had been out in the forest and he had discovered this prehistoric lizard-like creature,
Wow.
covered in dark black or dark green shaggy fur, had horns down its spine, a head of an elephant, face of a frog, oxen-like horns, tusks for teeth. You know, this really
A lot of pieces in there.
yeah, it took a lot of different pieces of taxonomy from different animals, you know, and kind of put it all into this one.
Well, it's all the best parts of things, right? And then,
But it was also egg laying.
oh, of course, why not?
Like a platypus, warm-blooded and egg laying. So he came back to Rhinelander after discovering this creature in the woods that had jumped up on like a big white pine log and growled at him. You know, and he had never seen anything like this in all of his travels throughout the forest. So came back to Rhinelander. He got this rough and tumble group of lumberjacks together. They went back out to the woods and cornered it. And over the course of a couple of hours of fighting this creature, trying to capture it, they accidentally blew it up with dynamite.
Oh, accidentally,
Yeah,
right?
you know, back in those days, there was a lot of stumps to be pulled up here. You know, the trees would get cut down. Homesteaders would be pulling stumps, and dynamite was the way to go about it. So dynamite was plentiful in this area. So to take a box along with you was no big deal. And, you know, through a very couple of misplaced throws, next thing you know is the charred remains of this potentially rare creature that they had discovered.
They're like, well, here's what's left of it.
Yeah. So he had perpetuated this story about this beast that he called a hodag over the course of the next couple of years, and then in 1896 discovered another live specimen in the woods. So we went back out into the forest and captured a live hodag.
So no dynamite this time.
No dynamite this time. Lesson learned, I think. So they brought the hodag back to Rhinelander, and Gene Shepard put it in a pit that he dug at his house.
Okay.
And put it on display. And then he also put it on display at our first Oneida County Fair here in Rhinelander. Took it around to other county fairs, including the Wisconsin State Fair. And like I said, he was such a good storyteller and such a good showman that people believed this was, you know, a live animal for years afterward. And Rhinelander became really legendary.
For having this mystical,
creature.
yeah.
Newspapers across the country. I was just checking into some archives the other day. Some of these articles had ran in over 50 major newspapers across the United States.
Wow.
So back in those days, like I said, you didn't have TV. This was before radio. You know, newspaper was the entertainment of the day. It was the Facebook. You know, it was the social media.
That's where all your sources came from, news-wise, and that's how you found out.
Get a paper, you know, you're in St. Louis or out in San Diego or New York or wherever you happen to be, and you get a newspaper and you read this story about this fantastic beast, you know, vicious, fur-bearing creature that was captured in the north woods of Wisconsin near Rhinelander. It just had to be believed, you know?
Well, they're not going to put it in the paper if it's not true.
Absolutely. So that's where the legends of Hodags began. And what started as kind of one single Hodag creature that was discovered, you know, eventually turned into this idea of it being a species of animal that inhabits the Lake Superior region, primarily the north woods of Wisconsin and the Rhinelander area. So at any point in time, there could be, you know, dozens, hundreds, historically speaking, could have been thousands of these animals
Wow.
roaming about the forest. And they came in all different shapes and sizes. Most notably, they were, Gene said they were 7 feet long and about 300 pounds.
It's pretty big.
Yeah, pretty big animal. They climbed trees like a bear. They could swim.
Okay.
They spent a lot of time in the swamps of the area. They came in different colors, so black, dark green, green, brown. Gene even said that female Hodags were white with black spots.
Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, there are different depictions of Hodags. In fact, hundreds of depictions of Hodags in artwork. Paintings, drawings, sculpture, effigy. You know, and wherever you go here in Rhinelander, home of the Hodag, you'll see a lot of those Hodag depictions.
Well, it looks like you got a couple of them right here, right?
This is a table of Hodags that I set out for you guys' visit, and this just really scratches the surface of the Hodags that we have here at the museum. So this, I got to point this out, this is a official club that was used by Gene Shepard to capture the Hodag in 1896. I think Teddy Roosevelt said it best. If Hodags are in the area, tread lightly, but carry a big club to search each other. And then, we have some other Hodags. This is a souvenir Hodag that we sell here at the museum, very reminiscent of what I call the chamber dag. So maybe you guys stop.
Oh, is that the big statue, right?
Yeah, when you come into Rhinelander, you see this giant Hodag statue. It's immediately intriguing. You want to learn some more about it if you haven't heard about it before.
Absolutely.
So then, over the course of decades, you have different Hodag souvenirs. This was a number of these were made by a local artist here and sold at gift shops. This is a Hodag that was made down in Mexico. There's probably about 100 of those bead Hodags out there.
Wow, so the Hodag legends stretch really far, even all the way down there.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a Charlie Brown Hodag here. There's a guy that was originally from Rhinelander, moved out to the Twin Cities, where Charles Schultz is from, St. Paul, and every year they do a Peanuts or Charlie Brown festival, and he had to make a Hodag Charlie. This is a papier-mâché Hodag that's over 100 years old.
Wow.
Held up surprisingly well. This is a famous Hodag that was on the back of the legendary Hodag bar. Of course, Rhinelander had to have a tavern, the Hodag bar.
Of course.
And this was the one that was on the back of the bar here, and it's now on display at the museum.
That's awesome that it's still around.
For Rhinelander's 100th year celebration, they made these little Hodags, which are actually decanters. So you would have a little John Soul whiskey in these.
That's really neat. That was for the 100th anniversary, you said?
100th anniversary of the city of Rhinelander, yeah.
Wow.
So another thing that's really spurred Hodags into the imagination of people across the country, across the world. More recently, the Hodag was featured in a Scooby-Doo episode.
Okay.
So, kids...
It's a perfect villain, right?
Yeah, exactly. Kids want to know what a Hodag is, and they saw it on Scooby-Doo, so we get a lot of people that come to Rhinelander, come to the museum, with that in mind. And then more recently than that, J.K. Rowling of Harry Potter fame included the Hodag in her Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them book. So now we have people all over the world that call the museum up from, Great Britain, from different European countries, from different Asian countries, and they want to know about the Hodag. They want to talk to the Hodag historians of our city, all because J.K. Rowling put it in this book, and so we're really thankful.
So we looked at this a little bit ago, and according to Newt Scamander, who put this all together, he says that they've purposely made Muggles think that it's a hoax to successfully hide the fact that the Hodag's definitely still out there.
So I tell hundreds of different Hodag stories and legends, and some of these details and intricacies, they're really believable. And I like to talk about the Hodag in real terms, that Hodags are real. And one thing that I always like to know, because I was at the Old Pines Estate a few years ago, rummaging through Gene Shepard's old barn. And deep in the barn there was a wooden crate covered in dust and all nailed shut. And I pried the top off that box, and inside it had a number of documents written by Gene Shepard.
Really?
And he explained in that, the original creation of the Hodag and what then he had to admit was a hoax. But some of those documents explain that because of the terror that was being developed within Rhinelander amongst homesteaders, visitors, vacationers to the area, that they were starting to be afraid, to be out in the woods, to be camping, to be, in the Rhinelander area. And it was actually city officials that told Gene Shepard he had to declare this a myth, a hoax.
Wow.
That he really didn't want to. So that harkens back to the idea that, Hodags actually are real. And he actually captured a real specimen. Another thing he talked about in those documents was, in a couple of years later, after 1896, he had went out into the woods and found a Hodag den and found 9 Hodag eggs and brought them back to his house. He was able to hatch out 7 Hodag puppies.
Whoa!
And it was his idea that he would turn these Hodag pups into a circus act. And as they grew bigger and bigger, they just became so unruly and ferocious.
Because they could get to 7 feet long, right?
He decided that we can't do this. It's not going to work. And so he got in his boat, which is across from, he got in his rowboat, and his old estate is right next to the Pelican River.
Okay.
Across the Pelican River is a nature preserve, the Holmbo Nature Preserve. And he put these 7 Hodag pups in the boat, and he rode them across and then freed them into the nature preserve. So, you know, it's very possible there are Hodags roaming about the Rhinelander area to this very day.
Wow. Well, I think it's definitely safe to say it is alive and well here. I noticed also this beautiful specimen up here. What can you tell us about this Hodag?
Yeah, we call that the Mama Hodag, and I'm not entirely sure who the artist was or the taxidermist was, but you know, there come people throughout time that want to replicate this creature as, you know, as real as possible. And that's where we get some of the taxidermy creation. So that one we call the Mama Hodag, and she's keeping a close eye over here on what we call the baby Hodag. And the kind of mischievous grin of this Hodag has been featured in documentaries and films that have been on Wisconsin Public Television and a few other documentaries across the country.
So maybe when he took those pups over in the boat, they might have been like about that size at that point, or?
Yeah, they could have even been a little bit bigger too. I think that one's a pretty young one. But you know, once those claws get sharp and once they start finding things to chew on, once they need some raw flesh, you know, it just gets too tough, I think.
I definitely understand that. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to tell everybody about the Hodag that you think should be out there?
So I think some of the most intriguing parts of the Hodag legends are how they go back potentially even further into time than Gene Shepherd's legends. So lumberjacks and loggers that spent time in the lumber camps, they told stories that when a lumber oxen passed away, they would build a funeral pyre.
Okay.
And they would have to keep this fire burning for 7 consecutive years.
Wow.
At which time the spirit of the dead oxen would escape into the forest and become a Hodag. So that's why it has very ox-like features, the horns and the shaggy fur and the very stout, strong animal.
You could definitely see kind of the resemblance of how it could transfer over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in these logging camps, there was also the loggers of different nationalities, you know, from Sweden and from other parts of Europe. And there's a story in Finland about a creature called a sturma that, you know, inhabits their forests there in the Finnish country. And if you look up a sturma online, you'll note that it has some similar features. So it's possible that Hodag-like creatures, you know, roam the rest of the globe. And then more immediately to our area here, the Anishinaabe people resided in the north woods of Wisconsin and the Lake Superior region, and a lot of Algonquin Native American tribes tell stories about a very important spirit in their legends called Mishapishu, the water panther spirit.
Okay.
And if you look up Mishapishu online, there's the Agawa rock pictograph, which is on Lake Superior just north of Sault Ste. Marie, and it also has a striking resemblance to Hodags, or rather Hodags have a striking
Wow, and that's stretching back further than Gene, correct?
thousands of years. Yeah, so 11,000 years ago, the entire northwoods of Wisconsin was covered by a mile-thick sheet of ice.
Okay.
Glaciers from the Canadian regions, you know, came down this way, and as they started to recede, you had different animals move into this area, the flora and fauna of the post-glacial period. You had mastodons and other creatures like that. So it is entirely within the realm of plausibility that dinosaur or prehistoric-like creatures, potentially, you know, having fur, claws, horns, actually did live in northern Wisconsin. And all good legends, you know, stem from grains of truth. And so the Native American people, you know, they had this idea about Mishapishu, and that just, you know, the stories were told as they are throughout human history, going all the way back to ancient Greek and Roman times, about these animals, explanations of phenomena in the natural world. And here we are today, celebrating everything Hodag.
Wow. So, and then even if Gene, let's say that he didn't see a Hodag himself, it's entirely possible that he saw these different depictions and stuff in his travels, because he was doing cartography, you said, like maps. So he, by all means, didn't probably just make this up himself. That may have brought it to the modern, but it sounds like the Hodag goes back much further than him, right?
Yes, certainly, and that's not to discredit, you know, Gene Shepherd's legacy, you know, and the legends and stories he told. But like I said, throughout human history, people have a way of, you know, explaining things out in the natural world and telling stories, and those stories get told and passed down, and word of mouth is a powerful, powerful tool within human history. And, you know, you go back 10,000, 100,000 years, and eventually all paths lead to Rhinelander, Wisconsin, the home of the Hodag.
And I notice you have this book here. Is this all about the Hodag?
Yeah, so this is the the best Hodag book that you can have. It's called Long Live the Hodag.
Okay.
It's by Kurt Kortenhoff, who is a Rhinelander native, and he wrote just a fabulous book about Gene Shepherd and the start of the Hodag legends. So you can get this at the Hodag store here at the museum in town, and it's just a great book. If you love Hodags, you want to learn more about the life and times of Gene Shepherd, this is the book to read.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time, sir. I appreciate it. And we're going to see if we can find some Hodags.
Yeah, I hope you guys take a visit up to Rhinelander, Wisconsin, and come check out all the Hodags.
Absolutely. There is so much more to see here than what we've just shown. You don't want to miss it. Get out here. And when it comes to celebrating the Hodag, there's no better place in all of Rhinelander than here at the Hodag store. With that signature green color and plenty of Hodags outside, this is a store you simply can't miss. Let's get inside and check it out. This is absolute Hodag paradise. Tons of merchandise, hats, shirts, little cute, adorable stuffed Hodags. Anything you could want, you're going to find it right here. Let's see what we want to buy. Immediately, you're going to want to buy everything here. They've got some awesome and very soft t-shirts. Perfect for showing off your Hodag pride. Lots of cuddly little friends. How can you resist these cute little faces? And just every inch is crammed with Hodag. Even the bathroom has been given the Hodag treatment. What more could you ask for than a Hodag holding a plunger? And while you're looking through all the goodies they have to offer, there's even some historical pieces for you to check out. It's basically a mini museum of past Hodag merchandise and items. This continues up top with some older art pieces of the different mythologies behind the Hodag, and something extremely special that we were privileged to see while we stopped by. This is a book by Gene Shepherd himself. As we learned, his main profession was cartography, going out and mapping the areas, which was extremely important in those days, as otherwise nobody had any idea where to go. As you can see, this was sold for $25, which was a ton back then, and is signed by Gene Shepherd's own hand. Truly a treasure when it comes to Hodag memorabilia. You can't get any better than that. Though some may call it a hoax, it's easy to see that the Hodag is in fact alive and well here in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. And who knows what exactly might be lurking out in the woods. This is truly an amazing story and an amazing creature. As for us at Abnormal Voyages, we believe in the Hodag. Well, adventurers, that's all the time we have today here in Rhinelander, but we are not going home empty-handed. We've got some delicious Hodag root beer and even a little Hodag of our own who's going to go out and join us on our travels. If you want to see those as well, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Well, my name is David, and this has been Abnormal Voyages. Thanks for tagging along. See you next time.